Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Because when you think about the history of American jazz, especially in the 20th century, you probably have a very specific image in your head.
Oh, definitely.
You know, you're likely picturing these smoky basement clubs in New York City, or maybe the bright marquees in Chicago.
The classic scenes.
You're thinking of the big names, Duke Ellington, Miles Davis, Charlie Parker, the icons.
The faces on the postage stamps, essentially.
Exactly.
And naturally, those are the figures that tend to dominate the narrative. It's the great man theory of jazz history. We look at the soloists, the front men, and we build the whole story around them.
Right. But today, for this deep dive, we are going to look at a story that I think is arguably much more representative of what the actual life of a working musician looked like in America.
A much grittier reality.
Yeah. We're moving the spotlight away from center stage and aiming it at the guy in the back row. Or, actually, more accurately, the guy driving the bus.
Literally driving the bus.
Yeah.
And cooking the food and writing the charts and teaching the classes.
Yes. We're talking about a man who wasn't necessarily a household name, but he was the ultimate musician's musician.
Stewart Dirk Fischer.
Stewart Dirk Fischer. And looking at the source material we've gathered today, mostly biographical records and career overviews, his life is just wild.
It really is.
It touches on everything from World War II army kitchens to the reality of touring the Midwest and eventually building this huge jazz legacy in, of all places, a coffee shop.
It's a fascinating trajectory because Fischer's biography, it reads almost like a map of the cultural and economic shifts in the U.S. from the 1940s straight through the early 2000s.
He's the forest, not just the tree.
Exactly. So just to give you a quick overview, Stewart Fischer, better known as Dirk, and later, hilariously, as Dirty Dirk, was born in September 1924.
In Durand, Michigan.
Right. And he passed away in February 2013 in Valencia, California.
That's a massive span of time. He lived through the entire evolution of modern music. So our mission today is to peel back the glamour.
We really want to understand the unglamorous reality of the jazz profession.
Right. How someone pivots from performance to pure survival and finally to education. Because Fischer isn't just a trumpet player. He's a case study in resilience.
A case study who happened to be named Dirty Dirk.
I love it. We'll get to the nickname later, but let's start at the very beginning. Because this guy didn't just, stumble into music. It seems like he was almost genetically engineered for it.
It was definitely the family business.
Yeah.
At least in a domestic sense. He was born into a household that was fundamentally musical.
Well, his mom played, right.
Yeah, his mother, Luella, she was of French descent and played the piano. And his father, Cecil, who was of German descent, played the banjo.
A banjo and a piano in the same house in the 1920s.
I know.
That is a loud living room.
Oh, for sure. And it gets even more specific. His uncle played the C melody saxophone.
Okay, I saw that in the notes, the C melody saxophone. That sounds like a trivia question answer. Why is that specific instrument a detail we should care about?
Well, it's a really interesting relic of the era. The C melody sax was designed specifically for home use.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was pitched in C, which meant you could look over the pianist's shoulder, read the exact same sheet music, and play the same notes without having to transpose the music in your head.
Which you normally have to do with a professional alto or tenor sax.
Exactly. So what that tells us is that music in the Fischer house wasn't just a performance. It was a highly participatory communal activity. They were all playing together.
That paints such a cozy picture. Just the family gathered around reading sheet music, and he wasn't an only child.
No, he was the oldest of four. And it's definitely worth noting that one of his younger brothers was Clare Fischer.
Who became a huge deal.
A very famous Grammy-winning musician and composer in his own right. But Stewart, or Dirk, he started his journey on the trumpet at age 13.
Which is also when he got the nickname Dirk.
Yes, from his mother.
Do we know why?
The sources are tantalizingly vague on why she started calling him that, but it completely stuck the rest of his life.
Dirk Fischer. It has a great ring to it. And then he picked up the saxophone just a year later, at 14.
Which is the first sign of that working musician mentality we were talking about.
Right. He's not just picking an instrument to be the star. He's building a toolkit.
It's called doubling in the industry. If you can play trumpet and sax, you are literally twice as employable.
So he's a teenager in Grand Rapids, Michigan, doubling on brass and woodwinds. And he's not just practicing in his bedroom, he actually forms a group.
The Aristocats.
The Aristocats, which is just a perfect pre-war band name.
It's classic. He formed it with 3 high school friends, Rich Henry, Hamilton Allen, and Mike Baelish. And they were actually gigging. They played at a place called Club Cherio in Muskegon.
It sounds idyllic, just 4 kids playing swing music in Michigan. But looking at the timeline, 1924 birth year. By the time he's 18 or 19, the world is completely upside down.
Precisely. World War II breaks out.
And Dirk gets drafted.
He gets drafted. And this is where the story takes a turn that just highlights the sheer bureaucratic absurdity of the military machine.
This part made me laugh out loud when I read the sources, because the Army looks at this talented multi-instrumentalist who can read music, play 2 instruments, gigging locally, and they say,
you know what you'd be good at? Baking bread.
Cooks in baker school.
It is wildly ironic. He entered the Army at Camp Barkley down in Texas and was initially enrolled in Cooks and Baker School.
Can you imagine you've got these jazz chops, you're ready to swing, and you're peeling potatoes for 1,000 guys?
Well, he was working in a company kitchen. And this really speaks to that drive we mentioned. He didn't let the music stop. He simply wouldn't accept that his only role was cook.
Right.
So he hunted down the Medical Replacement Training Center band on the base.
As you do.
And he just started playing saxophone and trumpet with them on the side.
So he's mixing dough by day and swing by night? That is serious dedication.
It's survival for an artist. And eventually, the talent won out. The Army realized they were wasting an asset, and they transferred him from the kitchen to the band full-time.
Thank goodness.
But the real turning point, the moment where big picture jazz history really intersects with his life, happens when he gets transferred to Camp Lee in Virginia.
Oh, this part blew my mind. So Camp Lee is the Armed Forces Band Training Unit. It's basically where the military sent all the music nerds. And who does he find there?
He finds himself stationed with instructors like Gil Evans.
Gil Evans. Let's just pause there for a second, because for the listener who knows the name Miles Davis, but maybe not Gil Evans, why is that such a big deal?
Gil Evans is a titan of the genre. He's one of the primary architects of what became known as cool jazz.
Right.
He was an arranger who thought in terms of texture and color, not just rhythm and melody. He's the absolute genius behind the birth of the cool sessions with Miles Davis later on.
So to study with Gil Evans is like studying physics with Einstein.
Exactly. And at this time, Evans had been drafted just like everyone else. So you have this legend in the making teaching classes at an Army camp. And Dirk takes his class.
He takes an arranging course from Gil Evans. But here's the detail from the source material that tells you just how good Fischer actually was.
Oh, it's incredible.
The sources note that Fischer already knew and practiced what Evans was teaching.
That is a serious flex, to sit in a class taught by Gil Evans and think, yeah, I'm tracking, I already do this.
It speaks to his level of sophistication even at that young age. She wasn't just a guy who could blow a horn. He understood the deep structure of the music.
He really did. But there's another aspect of his service that I think is even more significant than the celebrity connection.
The integration.
Yes. It's a powerful part of the story, especially considering the time frame. We are talking about the early to mid-40s.
The military is still strictly segregated.
Very strictly. Yet, Fischer gets sent to Camp Reynolds in Pennsylvania, and he joins the 331st Army Service Forces Jazz Ensemble.
Which was a black military big band.
Exactly.
So there's Dirk Fischer, a white guy from Michigan, sitting right there in the trumpet section of an all-black band. How did the military brass handle that?
There is a specific anecdote preserved from a 1944 photo caption. Apparently, a black warrant officer came in, saw the band, and asked the band leader why there was a white guy sitting in the trumpet section.
And the band leader says?
He simply replied, "Can't you tell?"
Can't you tell? Man, that gives me chills.
It implies everything. Listen to him play.
It's like the music was the passport. If you could play, you belonged. The sound justified the space, regardless of the laws outside the room.
Precisely. Music was bridging the racial gap in a segregated institution well before the actual policies caught up. He was there because his sound was right. It's a testament to the absolute meritocracy of the bandstand.
So the war ends. Dirk comes home. He's got these incredible skills. He's rubbed shoulders with Gil Evans. He's played in integrated bands. He's got the GI Bill in his pocket. What does he do? I mean, does he go straight to New York to chase the spotlight?
No. And this is where we really plunge into that working musician reality. He heads to the Northern Plains.
The Northern Plains, not exactly the jazz capital of the world.
No, but he used the GI Bill to study in Minnesota. And he went for rigorous classical training. He studied trumpet with Daniel Benner Tetzlaff and orchestration with William Muleby. Both of those guys were from the Minneapolis Symphony.
That's a serious pivot.
He also studied tonal materials with Jack Nowicki and 20th century counterpoint with Ernst Krenek.
Counterpoint. I mean, that's pretty dense academic stuff for a guy who wants to play jazz in clubs, isn't it?
It is dense, but it's absolutely crucial for a top-tier arranger. Counterpoint is the art of weaving independent melodic lines together.
Right.
If you want to write complex, interesting big band charts where the saxophones are doing one thing and the trombones are doing something completely different, but it all sounds cohesive, you need to understand how voices interact.
He was building a heavy-duty toolkit. He's not leaving anything to chance.
Exactly. But his day job wasn't in a symphony hall. After his studies, he enters this era that I find so fascinating, the era of the territory bands.
Yes. I feel like territory bands is a concept we've completely lost in modern music. Can you break that down for us? Because today we think of bands as either playing a local bar or touring globally.
Right. Before national touring acts dominated everything, before television and the interstate highway system really took over, you had these bands that owned a specific region or territory.
Okay.
They would travel by bus to dance halls within maybe a few 100 miles radius of a hub city. Fischer played in bands that were booked out of Omaha, Nebraska.
Omaha is a jazz hub? Who knew?
It was a major distribution point for live music in the Midwest. They were booked by an agency called the National Orchestra Service, and Fischer played with a ton of them. The Teddy Phillips Band, the Little John Beecher Orchestra, the Jovial Latin Ensemble, Walter Marty, John Paul Jones, Lee Williams.
It sounds like he played everything. Latin, swing, dance music.
He played whatever paid.
Yeah.
Trumpet and valve trombone.
Yeah.
But if you look at the source material, his role went far beyond just playing the gig. And this is where the glamour completely evaporates.
Oh, this is my favorite part. Detail what else this guy was doing on the road.
Well, aside from writing most of these special arrangements for these bands, which, by the way, is a huge time-consuming job in itself, he was the road manager for John Beecher.
So he's handling logistics, paying guys, dealing with promoters.
Yep. And perhaps most tellingly, he drove the sleeper bus.
He drove the bus. Just imagine that for a second. You finish a gig at 1:00 a.m. You've just played a killer solo. You've literally written the arrangement the band is playing, and then you have to pack up, get behind the wheel of a massive non-power steering bus, and drive across Nebraska in the dark to the next town.
It creates such a vivid image of the grind. You are the talent, but you are also the infrastructure. And this, by the way, is where his friends started calling him Dirty Dirk.
Dirty Dirk. See, when I first saw that in the notes, I thought it might be scandalous, but the source says it was endearing. I imagine it's because when you're fixing a bus engine on the side of a dirt road in 1954, you get a little dirty.
Almost certainly. It's grease, road dust, and exhaust.
Yeah.
And he did this for over a decade. The late 40s, straight through the 50s. It was an incredibly hard life, but it was a life completely immersed in music. However, all things must come to an end. The National Orchestra Service went out of business in 1959.
The end of an era. Rock and roll is coming in, TV is keeping people at home, the dance halls are closing, the territory bands just dry up. So Dirk is now, what, mid-30s?
He could be about 35, yeah.
Okay, 35 years old, unemployed in Omaha. That's a scary moment for anyone, let alone a niche musician. So he pivots again, he packs up and heads west.
He heads to Los Angeles. The year is 1959.
The promised land. But looking at the timeline, it wasn't exactly paved with gold right away, was it?
Not immediately, no. He spent the next 6 years working in recording studios, but largely as a ghostwriter.
Ghostwriting, let's clarify that for everyone listening. That means he's writing the music, doing the heavy lifting, but someone else is putting their name on the sheet music.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
He's composing and arranging music for other composers or band leaders who get the official credit and, more importantly, the royalties. He's doing the architectural work and someone else is signing the building. It's a very common story in Hollywood and the music industry, but it can be incredibly soul-crushing.
You're doing the work of a genius, but getting paid like a laborer. But this period in LA also introduces a new chapter in his personal life, and this leads to what I think is the most surprising pivot in his entire story.
Yes. He met his second wife, Rosalindo Satin, known as Roz. They met at Ram's Restaurant.
Is he eating there?
He was working there.
Really?
Yeah. The source doesn't specify if he was playing piano in the corner or waiting tables.
Right.
But considering the ghostwriting struggle, he might have been doing whatever paid the bills. He, quote-unquote, hired Roz in 1965, and they got married in Las Vegas in 1966.
Romance at the Rams restaurant. And that marriage lasted 40 years. But they do something together that I just love. It's so practical and yet so completely unexpected for a jazz musician. They don't just keep scraping by in the gig economy. They start a retail business.
They opened a coffee shop. the Owl Coffee Shop in Van Nuys.
A coffee shop. And we aren't talking about a modern hipster pour-over place, right? This is the 60s and 70s in LA. This is a diner.
A standard, working-class coffee shop. They ran it together for 14 years. But I really want you to focus on the strategy here, because this is the brilliance of Dirk Fischer. They didn't open a coffee shop just because they wanted to be restaurateurs.
Right.
The business specifically allowed Fischer to go back to music school, and it allowed his wife, Roz, to enter nursing school.
That is the ultimate hustle. You're running a small business, pouring coffee, managing the books, dealing with customers, just so you can afford to get the credentials you need to teach the thing you actually love.
It's a remarkable pivot.
Mm.
He realized that the road warrior life wasn't sustainable as he got older. He needed stability. So he took his old GI Bill credits from Minnesota, transferred them out west, and earned credits from Cal State Los Angeles and Cal State Northridge.
Putting in the hours.
And he finally completed his California teaching credential.
He's playing the long game, he's flipping burgers or pouring coffee to fund his future students, and it pays off in the 70s. But again, in true Dirk Fischer fashion, it happens almost by accident.
It does. See, in the 1970s, jazz studies programs were just starting to become a real thing in academia. Before that, music schools were strictly classical. But now, community colleges and universities needed qualified jazz teachers.
But they had a supply problem.
Exactly. The problem was you couldn't find jazz guys in the PhD programs. You had to find the guys who had actually been out on the road.
The guys who drove the buses in Omaha.
You needed someone with the academic theory, which Dirk had from his rigorous counterpoint studies in Minnesota, and the street smarts. College of the Canyons, or COC, was looking for exactly that. But Dirk didn't even apply for a job initially.
Right, his wife Roz just suggested he visit the college to find people to play with. She basically said, go make some friends, Dirk.
Pretty much. He went to the campus looking for a jam session and ended up being hired in 1977 as the very first instructor of jazz studies at College of the Canyons.
That is fantastic. He goes from ghostwriting and pouring coffee to literally founding a college department.
And he stayed there until 2005. That's nearly 30 years. He served as the jazz band director and even established the annual Arcade Downs Jazz Festival, which he actually named after his mentor.
He really put down roots. He stopped driving the bus and he built a station. But I want to make sure we touch on the music he left behind, because even though he became an educator, he never stopped creating. The source material mentions a few key albums.
Yes, his discography is really interesting because it highlights his collaborative nature. He wasn't an egomaniac. There's an album called Thesaurus, which he recorded with the Clare Fischer Big Band in 1968.
That's his brother's band.
Right. And then much later, there's George Stone and Friends performed the music of Stewart, Dirk Fischer in 2004, and another called Coming of Age in 2011.
And he did a lot of arranging for his brother Clare over the years.
He did. He arranged some of Clare Fischer's best tunes, like Pensativa, Funkiato, and Gaviota. But Dirk also had his own original compositions, songs with names like Mambo Estudio and Omaha Gathering.
Omaha Gathering, I love that. A direct nod to his Territory Band days.
Precisely. He was synthesizing his entire life experience into his music. He wrote a piece called Donde back in 1958, and it pops up in his publishing catalog decades later. Nothing was wasted.
It's incredible to think about the breadth of this man's life. He passed away in 2013 at the age of 88. But when you look back at it, born in the 20s, goes to Cooks and Bakers School,
Right.
integrates army bands in the 40s, drives the bus through the Midwest in the 50s, ghostwrites in LA in the 60s, runs a coffee shop in the 70s, and then mentors a generation of students for 30 years.
He represents the absolute backbone of the jazz world. We so often focus on the soloist in the spotlight, but the genre was built and sustained by people exactly like Dirk Fischer.
The workers.
The arrangers, the road managers, the teachers.
It really challenges the idea that a successful career in the arts is just about fame and fortune. Dirk Fischer seemed to define success as just keeping the music going, whatever it took. If it meant driving the bus, he drove the bus. If it meant selling coffee, he sold coffee.
That's the real takeaway here for me. His life illustrates that a career in the arts is almost never a straight line. It requires diverse pivots. You have to be willing to reinvent yourself over and over to sustain your creative passion. He wasn't too proud to work in a kitchen or hide in a recording studio shadow if it meant he could keep playing his horn.
Absolutely. It's deeply inspiring. It makes you realize that the legend isn't always the guy posing on the album cover. Sometimes it's the guy teaching the 8 a.m. class or writing the chart the star is reading.
Or the guy who fixed the bus engine so the band could actually make it to the gig in the first place.
Exactly. You know, we started this deep dive by talking about the great men of jazz, the icons. But after digging into Dirk's life, I'm left with a totally different thought. Dirk Fischer spent years ghostwriting for others and keeping the show on the road from the shadows before he finally got his name on the door of that jazz department. It really makes you wonder,
What's that?
how many other dirty Dirks are out there right now? When you're listening to a new track or at a local show, how many people are out there keeping the music alive in the shadows, doing the truly unglamorous work, driving the vans, running the merchandise tables, teaching the middle school lessons whose names we might never ever know?
That is the real question. They are the invisible infrastructure of our entire culture.
It's something for you to think about the next time you put on your favorite record. There's probably a Dirk Fisher behind it somewhere, making sure the whole thing doesn't fall apart. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the life of Stewart Dirk Fisher. It's been quite a ride.
It was a pleasure to talk about him.
We'll catch you on the next one.